Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's day is going okay today. I'd like to thank you for tuning into my speech today. My name is Joshua Manisov, and today I will be discussing the issue and proposing some solutions to limit texting and driving primarily for teenage youth. Did you know that car crashes are the leading cause of death for American teenagers, and primarily these car crashes are caused from distracted driving? Distracted driving is defined as any form of distraction that influences the driver's ability or quality of driving. The danger of distracted driving is reflected by the 30,000 people killed in auto accidents in Texas every year. About 18% of those crashes resulted from texting and driving. According to statistics, teenagers and inexperienced drivers between the ages of 16 and 24 are 4 times as likely to get into car accidents while using their cell phones. Additionally, 94% of teenagers acknowledge the dangers of texting and driving, while an astounding 35% of teens still text and drive. The epidemic of distracted driving-related accidents has led to the creation of a law banning cell phone use while driving in the state of Texas. The law functions to decrease the amount of distracted driving-related accidents by fining individuals caught $99 to $200. However, the effectiveness of the law is limited by the law enforcement's ability to detect drivers texting. Obviously, our current solutions to the problem of texting and driving are not working at a maximized efficiency. Collectively, the problem of texting and driving can be solved significantly through 3 programs: increased driver's education requirements, pledging and educational exposure to the dangers of texting and driving, and increased fines reform. Collectively, the reason I chose to present on the topic of the dangers of texting and driving is because I have personal experience regarding the issue. I have been involved in several texting and driving related accidents, one of which I was behind the wheel. In my first crash, I was driving home from school and texting, and I looked down at my phone for just a few seconds. And by the time I looked up, I was inches away from another car, and it was too late. I had rear-ended a mother and her 2 children. Luckily, no one was injured, but that day I learned the importance of staying focused while driving, not just for the protection of myself, but for the protection of those around me. Like many other naive teenagers, I considered myself a skilled multitasker, and never really considered the possibility of me crashing while driving. But just like it happened to me, it can happen to you and anyone else. What many people fail to consider about texting and driving is who the accidents affect. Texting and driving related accidents are the leading cause of death and serious injury and affect innocent drivers, the bystanders, and the families of those who have lost theirs to distracted driving accidents. Additionally, it affects your friends and even the emergency respondents. While the time it takes to send a text may not seem that long, just remember that every time your eyes are not on the road, you're 23 times as likely to crash while using a cell phone and driving. So after all of this, what can we do to effectively convey the dangers of texting and driving? And how can we prevent the use of cell phones while driving? One of the most formidable solutions to decrease the amount of texting and driving related accidents is to educate the public. Public education is the foundation of establishing social order, and therefore, by increasing drivers' education requirements regarding texting and driving, drivers will be more informed on the dangers of texting and driving, and subsequently will be less likely to do so. Similarly, to prevent instances of adults distracted by texting and driving, a driver's education mandatory test should be implemented for any license renewal or exchange. The primary opposition for these solutions regards funding for the creation of the extended driver's education programs. However, I believe that the programs would reduce the amount of government funding necessary to fund distracted driving related accidents. Moreover, into other solutions, instead of creating solutions for preventing texting and driving, we can focus on improving our old solutions. In several states such as California and Texas, texting and driving was outlawed and is punishable by fines. As I mentioned before, in Texas, the average fine for distracted driving while using a cell phone ranges from $99 to $200. However, one of the opposing arguments for traffic fines for texting and driving regards the law's enforcement's efficiency in detecting offenders and the funding for their methods. However, by implementing a law, it provides a deterrent for lawbreakers and a source for funding for increased law enforcement surveillance. To further improve the efficiency of the law, states could also increase fines and punishments, especially for repeat offenders, to further deter drivers from using their cell phones while driving. Finally, one of the most important messages about texting and driving to get across to the public are the consequences of the accidents caused by distracted driving. We could introduce increased exposures of the consequences of distracted driving in schools, driver education programs, and even places like churches, making drivers less likely to use their phones while driving after they have received this message. Exposure to people that have been affected by texting and driving accidents, such as the families of the victims and people involved in the crashes, would increase human empathy and awareness for others, subsequently decreasing the amount of texting and driving. Additionally, to increase awareness, a pledge against texting and driving could be offered to the public. But however, an argument against the use of pledges is the quality of the driver's promise to not use their phone and drive. A pledge could easily sign and disregard their promise with any consequence in the making, which would make the pledge completely ineffective. However, the inclusion of pledges in public education could significantly increase the amount of negative stigma revolving around texting and driving, consequently deterring some people from committing the act. Collectively, I believe these programs provide formidable solutions that would overall decrease the amount of texting and driving related accidents. And through increased public education and mandatory awareness tests would generate a negative stigma around texting and driving, subsequently decreasing the number of drivers who text and drive. Increased traffic fines could provide a punishable deterrent to scare people from texting and driving. And finally, increased exposure and pledging will increase awareness about the importance of staying focused while driving and contribute to an overall decrease in the number of people who use their phones behind the wheel. These vital elements of the program reform can help change road safety to limit the amount of auto accidents. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to focus when you drive.